This is Solodan. He is adventuring throughout the World of Warcraft without trading, grouping, or any other outside help. With World of Warcraft scaling dungeons up to specific levels, Solodan will be locking his level to avoid overleveling until all dungeons and raids, if possible, are cleared. Currently we are locked at level 30, which is the cap for all Classic, Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King content. However, that does not restrict us from venturing to other expansions to help us in our quest for power. On today's agenda, the first real profession grind, alchemy. Alchemy is a profession mainly used for making consumable items in the form of potions, which give brief unique effects, and flasks having a longer duration effect but usually weaker when it comes to power. With 10 expansions of professions under WoW's belt, there are a lot of options, but luckily for us, anything after Cataclysm cannot be used at level 30, so that restricts our access to the base game and its first 3 expansions. That still leaves us with a ton of options, however, and many of them are never used anymore, which means I will have to test some of these to figure out how they actually perform. An example of this is the Frost Oil, which just states that when casting spells you have a chance to cast a Frostbolt. However, no indication of how much damage this does. And while I could scour the deep dark web to find an answer, where's the fun in that? So first of all, I made a list of all the potions and flasks I want to try out and make. After that, we will start grinding out the materials to level and make these potions with our herbalism profession. And lastly, well, we will create the potions we want. While I'm working hard in gathering mats and crafting, let's have a look at the list of potions I want to make. To do this, I just went through every single potion and flask on the alchemy list in the game, and picked the ones that sound coolest to me or have the most powerful effects. Do keep in mind that I will try and obtain things that will be good for all specializations of Druid, just in case I need to play another one. Let's start with potions. And there are absolute bangers in here from Classic, which, if you never heard of them, may surprise you slightly in their power. First up, the duo of the Living Action Potion and the Free Action Potion. Each of these makes you immune to all forms of CC. And while the living version only lasts for 3 seconds, it can be used to free you from active crowd control, while the Free Action Potion lasts for 30 seconds, but it cannot be used once you're already CC'd. This works on most dungeon and raid mechanics and will for sure come in handy in some cases. Next up, the Purification Potion removes 1 poison, 1 curse, and 1 disease from you, which will be my only way to get rid of disease effects. The Mighty Rage Potion grants 30 to 90 rage, and 26 strength for 20 seconds, which could be crucial for my Guardian spec, which uses rage as a main resource. And lastly, for flat buff potions, we have the Absolute Beast potions from Cataclysm, which outshine every other potion by a mile. The Potion of the Tol'vir gives 59 agility for 25 seconds, and its cousin, the Volcanic Potion, gives the same 59 int for 25 seconds. And these will be my go-to potions if I need to bump my DPS up a little bit. For elixirs and flasks, we have the Flask of Distilled Wisdom, giving a whopping 27 intellect, which is more than a chest piece gives currently, so definitely worth having for when I get into a pinch. There is also the Flask of Supreme Power, which gives 29 spell power, but this last one requires Exalted Reputation with the Keepers of Time, so for now this one will be put on the back burner. For agility, the best flask is the Cataclysm Flask of the Wind, which gives 15 agility. And lastly, I was intrigued by weapon oils available in Classic, mainly the Frost and Shadow oil, so we will try these out as well. With the list ready, it's time to get grinding and unlocking. And luckily for me, when I logged in next, all of my skywriting talents were unlocked, thank God. I then make my way to Winterspring to pick up the recipes for the Living Action Potion, after which I make my way to Hillsbrad Foothills to get the Frost Oil recipe. And with Hillsbrad having a ton of herbs I needed, I decided to do some questing here to change up the pace. I just like to do some questing here and there, just in case I find some weird and wondrous items that could help me on my quest, and to break up the tedious grind that is herbalism. After a couple of quests, we get our alchemy up to 146 and pick up the recipe we came here for. As there is also a trainer here, we pick up some new recipes and keep training until we unlock the first of our listed potions, the Shadow Oil. This oil deals damage randomly on hit, so it may come in handy in the future if it does any real damage at all. We shift over to the Arathi Highlands and follow the same plan. Do some questing, do some gathering on the side as we gather some Wild Steel Bloom, Goldthorn, and King's Blood. After getting a bit carried away and finishing all of the quests in Arathi Highlands, We head back to the alchemy trainer and soon reach level 200, which allows us to learn the recipe for frost oil. Another one down. I look into crafting it, but I'm missing some of these dragon's teeth herbs, so that started my exploratory mission into finding these. And after quite some flying around, I find my way over to the dragon's mouth in the Badlands, and gather some of his teeth? I should have guessed this one earlier. This gets us all the ingredients for the second oil I want to try, the frost oil. After crafting some of the oils, we head down to Felwood, get some Grom's blood, and on the way we finally hit max level in herbalism for classic. Too bad we'll have to get rid of this later. Oh well. The Grom's blood in turn is the key ingredient to make another one of the potions on the list, the Mighty Rage potion. Already 3 down. We are making quite some progress. Once we reach alchemy level 285, we are able to learn the living action potion recipe, so that is another one crossed off the list. And we are also now able to learn 2 more potions from our trainer that will definitely come in useful. Greater Arcane Elixir is a battle elixir that gives 14 spell power and 4 crit. And with spell power no longer being an actual stat, I'm intrigued to find out if this actually works. We also unlock the Purification Potion, again, helping us to get rid of diseases whenever we need to. And that leaves us with 3 more potions and flasks I want to get in Classic. The first one being the Free Action Potion. Now, this one just randomly appears on the alchemy supply vendor in Orgrimmar, so I will have to keep my eye out for this one. The second one is the Flask of Supreme Power, which grants 29 spell power, but as mentioned before, I'm not really eager to grind the Keepers of Time to exalt it right now, so I'll keep that one on the back burner as well. And lastly is the Flask of Distilled Power. We'll get back to that one in a minute. But since I've made some of the greater arcane elixirs, we can go and test out this spell power buff. Arriving at the dummies, I start casting, and I use the details add-on to keep track of the damage done. It seems that my rad damage without any buffs fluctuates between about 271 to 283, so let's use this elixir and see what 14 spell power actually does. I pop the potion and to my surprise, I get a freebie and I actually get 15 spell power. You know what? I'll take it. And from this testing we can definitely see that it has an effect. My minimum hit went up to 284 and my max hit went to 296, which is about a 5% damage increase for the 15 spell power, which is quite neat. I wanted to compare this to intellect, so I bust out an elixir of greater intellect giving 9 int just to see what the difference is. And the 9 int got me to a 279 minimum and 292 maximum damage range, leading me to believe that int and spell power are basically about 1-to-1 when it comes to damage. Having seen this, I decide to put the rep grind on the back burner for now, as there is a flask that gives 27 int, which is only 2 less than the 29 spell power. And this is the Flask of Distilled Wisdom. The recipe drops from Balnazar, the final boss in Stratholme Living Side, so I know where to head next. But before that, while we're still at the dummies, let's try out some of these oils. And to say that they are disappointing is probably an understatement. Each of the procs hits for 1 damage, and the proc rate is quite low. Even at a fast attack speed of cat form, they don't proc all of that often. But looking at it from the bright side, we won't have to grind the mats for these ones anytime soon. I pack my flasks up and prepare myself for the journey to Stratholme, to try our luck at our recipe. As I enter Stratholme, I do the usual, go into cat form and stealth. Damn it. Well, guess I'm clearing all the trash this time. We start out with the Unforgiven, which is only half a boss really. Low HP, low damage, not really putting up much of a fight. Next up, Tibby the Cruel, goes down quite easily. Commander Malor is next, and Commander Malor stuns, so the main goal here is to stay at high HP to not get comboed while you're being stunned, but as long as you keep yourself healthy, you shouldn't have a problem with this one either. And our next boss, Willy Hobreaker, is another entry in our Mechanics in Old Dungeons that nobody knows and or cares about. Willy Hobreaker spawns a bunch of ads, and these ads are really annoying. They shoot through walls, they shoot with seemingly infinite range. But what you can do is you can pick up one of these cannonballs, then walk over to a cannon and shoot the cannon and all the ads are gone. However, it is way too hard to juggle while killing the boss, and Willy absolutely slaps like a monster truck. So we resort to a different option. You see, Willy has a ranged attack, and while his melee attack hurts a lot, his ranged attack doesn't. So we stay at range and we just spam a bunch of starfalls to get rid of the ads, and then you get this beautiful mess. And eventually this beautiful mess turns back into absolute silence when Willy goes down. Briefly skipping one boss, we then head up to Balnazar, the boss that drops the recipe. And aside from him slapping really hard, He also fears you regularly for 4 seconds. So the name of the game here is staying healthy and being efficient with mana to last the entire fight. I do the usual, switching into bear form to get some free healing with frenzied regeneration, and then switch back to boomkin to do damage, and so on and so on. And eventually Balnazar 2 falls, granting me a whopping 6 gold. Well, we can't always be lucky, I guess. Now there is one boss I quickly skipped, which is Instructor Galford, because I thought if I clear Balnazar I've got the entire room to work with. So I pull Instructor Galford into the room where Balnazar was and start whittling him down. He also has an avoidable stun, so again, stay healthy to survive the stun windows is the key to getting him down. Now that is living side cleared, but Stratholme also has an undead part. And while I could just farm living side on its own for now, just to get the recipe, for my first clear I always like to clear the entire dungeon. So I went over to the undead wing, just to be able to cross this dungeon off the list as well. On the way there, we quickly take care of Heartsinger Forester, and soon come face to face with Baroness Anastari. Now this boss has a mechanic that mind controls a player in your party, and if I get mind controlled, the fight is over, which unfortunately happens on a first attempt. A bit worried of what will happen next, I wait out the 2-minute mind control before I gain control of my character again and start the fight. You may wonder, how will I ever overcome this mechanic? Some people would call it clever use of game mechanics, spaghetti code, or maybe it's just intended. You see, the boss will only cast mind control if there is more than one target. The reason I got mind controlled earlier was because I had Maple, Birch and John out. So if I redo the fight without summoning my good old 3 and friends, I'll be completely fine. And I eventually make it through mind control free. Malaki the Paladin is up next, and aside from his annoying drain life healing, he isn't all too bad and falls swiftly after. Neruben Khan is another one of those bosses with a very heavy hitting melee attack, but very weak ranged attacks. And while sometimes he will randomly start creeping closer to you, if you keep kiting away to force him into ranged attacks, you should be golden. Now Magistrate Bartholus is on a whole other level. He has a heavy hitting melee attack, no ranged attacks, and on top of that he has an infinitely scaling damage buff, which increases the damage he deals over time. And after about 10 plus stacks, he finally slaps me into oblivion. I will need to kite this boss, but to kite, I will need some more room, so I decide to clear out the room ahead, the entire courtyard, and as that activates Ramstein the Gorger, we end up going after him first, but we will be back for you, Bartholus. Naively thinking Ramstein might be easier, I could not have been more wrong. Ramstein hits hard, has a knock-up into stun attack, oh, and did I mention he hits really hard? With my mana draining faster than a recently unclogged drain pipe, I soon go down to the sheer amount of damage. Kiting is the name of the game on the next attempt, but even that is not enough to keep me alive. I need to keep him away from me longer, so I get time to heal and for my dots to take him down. And after a review of my talents, I decide to try and spec into Typhoon, an ability that knocks enemies away. Now usually this does not work on bosses, but with these classic bosses, you never really know what works and what doesn't. We head over to Ramstein with the usual switching into and out of bear form for the extra heals, and when we get ready to run, we Typhoon him away. And it actually works? That gives me a brief period where I can get away from him every 30 seconds, and paired with my dash and cat form for the extra movement speed, and Maple, Birch and John tanking him every minute, we manage to find a good flow between healing, running and damaging, eventually leading us to defeat Ramstein. But no time to waste. Now that the courtyard is clear, we can head back to the Magistrate and oh, wait. I completely forgot about this undead horde spawning after Ramstein goes down, and by the skin of my teeth, I managed to survive and start kiting the Magistrate in the courtyard. Just to see the Black Knights walking out of the door. Well, that's it for this attempt. I clean up the Blackguards before starting my rematch with Bartholus, and just like Ramstein, we dip, duck, dodge and roll our way around the courtyard, avoiding as many of his melee attacks as possible until eventually he also falls, rewarding us with the key to the city, which is utterly useless these days, unfortunately. One more boss stands between me and my full clear of this dungeon, Lord Aureus Rivendare. His melee attacks hit hard, but his cast tickles. He regularly spawns a group of skeletons and he does constant damage to anyone close to him. But with proper mana management, some kiting, and my good 3 and friends, Aureus goes down, giving us the clear of Stratholme. Now to farm the recipe, I only really have to beat Balnazar, and to make it easier on myself, I decided to go out and try some Guardian runs, which are a lot safer and more chill to do. On my way to Balnazar, I would sometimes clear out Willy, just for the off chance to get the Cannonball Runner trinket, as the trinkets I had were not really great for tanking at the time, and also, I just love trinkets. I wonder if trinkets would be worth making a video on. Oh well. I show off the cannon on the next Balnazar kill, and it did about 2% of my overall damage on him, so not too shabby I would say. My army of minions grows further. We keep bashing our heads against Balnazar, and after about 8 runs this happens. Yo! I got it! I think this is like run 7. I got both the flask and the Book of the Dead, and the Book of the Dead's one I definitely want to try and use, because it randomly summons a skeleton that will protect me. It'll definitely just do 1 damage, but... Yo, that's insane! I'm done! Now the skeleton actually hits for 8 damage, so better than 1, but not stellar. With a recipe and an epic offhand in hand, I make my way to farm some Mountain Silver Sage to be able to max out my alchemy, and then I make the flat. I am missing Black Lotus? I'm sure I farmed those in Fellwood. Oh, those were purple lotuses. The Black Lotus, in comparison, is a very elusive flower that only grows in specific areas in the world. And after about 25 minutes of tedious flying and herbing, I find 1, resulting in my first 2 flasks of distilled wisdom. And with that, I wasn't really feeling grinding a lot more, so that's where I left Classic Alchemy behind. The next time I log in, the pre-patch event is on, so I decide to check it out. Off to Dalaran to speak to Khadgar and engage in this event. Rotating through 3 zones, these are memories spawning that we need to engage with. After doing enough memories, a boss spawns in the zone, Ragnaros, the Lich King, Onyxia, depending on the zone. Now, the event mainly rewards pets, a mount, and max level gear, but there are a few very nice bags I can pick up here for not too much of the currency. So I grind out enough to equip myself with a full set of bags before moving on. To finish off alchemy, we only really have Cataclysm alchemy left to do. In the Cataclysm, there are some potions and flasks I really would love to get. The main ones I want to get are the potions that give 59 main stat for 25 seconds. And while the flasks are not stronger than the distilled wisdom ones, they are a lot easier to get. And the agility ones are actually the best ones I can get. Due to them being easier to get, I can probably use them a bit more frequently and freely when going through dungeons or farming in the open world. I start off by farming herbs in Uldum, but soon after get bored, so decided to actually start questing through Cataclysm while farming herbs. This could potentially net me some questing epics as well. When I pass the alchemy trainer to learn some new potions, I notice that he offers a quest. This quest is to decide on a specialization, which I completely forgot about. I have a choice between Potion Master, Elixir Master, and Transmutation Master, so I decide to go for Potion Master, as this will give me a chance to create extra potions when I'm crafting them. And this works on any potions from Mist of Pandaria and the expansions before that, so could potentially give me quite some yield on the Cataclysm ones. But in order to finish this quest, I need to do some Pandaria crafts. Another day, another distraction. But this one should be well worth it. I pick up Pandaria Herbalism and start gathering the herbs needed to finish the quest. Now Pandaria works slightly differently than other expansions before. To learn new recipes, you need to craft potions. So I will have to survive some RNG here as well. While grinding here, I also come across these life spirits, which you can randomly obtain from herbing in Pandaria. These heal 1600 health over 6 seconds, which is actually the best healing potion I can get, or at least the best one I found so far. Unfortunately, I ended up having to max my alchemy for Mist of Pandaria to unlock the last recipe I needed, but after only a couple of hours we had the potions, and we are now a potion master. What were we doing again? Oh right, Cataclysm questing and herbing. First up, Mount Hyjal, a source of plenty of Cinderbloom and questing. It all ends with me punching Ragnaros back into the Firelands, all on my own of course. Concluding the zone leaves me with 2 things I want to check out. My first thought was to check the Molten Front, a daily hub for Cataclysm's endgame content. However, this only unlocks at level 32. Secondly, I wanted to check out the Quartermaster for the Guardians of Hyjal faction, but the eye level on the gear was painfully low. Off to Vashj'ir next, as I'm hoping to get some more Azshara's Veil, being as I need quite a few of these for the potions and flasks I want to make. I don't know what kind of powder my travel form sniffed this day, but this is hella fast. It's even faster than the seahorse mount you get here. Upon finishing the questing in Vashj'ir, we head over to Uldum next, but halfway through, my inventory really started overflowing with green gear. So I decided to leave the questing there for now, and fully focus on finishing off this alchemy grind. The gear in my inventory will be used later on, don't worry. I just don't really want to sell it right now. After leveling enough to learn all the recipes, I'll make my shopping list. 400 Twilight Jasmine, 600 Jara's Veil, 200 Stormvine, and lastly an extra 250 Whiptail from Wooldoom. This all to create 200 of the Int and Agility potions, 50 Agility flasks, and 5 Intellect flasks. Now I'm not making too many Int flasks, as I believe I will mainly be using Guardian or Feral in the hardest content, and I have the option of getting better Int flasks with the classic ones if I really wanted to. One short alchemy session later, and we have a nice stock of potion and flasks for our future endeavors. And now it is time to say goodbye, old friend. You have served us well, but it is time to make a new friend. But that is for the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to have a wonderful day. Bye bye.